Today on Performance Talks, we have Shalom Volchok, founder and CEO of Outsmartly and longtime Edgemesh friend. Hey, Shalom, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you.
Doing great. Great to be here.
So, we've talked for a little while, but just for everybody else, can you give us a little bit about your background? Like, how did you get here? Like, where did you start from?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So my family actually had a bulk herbs company. We sold medicinal herbs all over the world. My parents founded that in 1985, and then in 2001, I joined the company, and we developed this line of direct-to-consumer herbal cleansing detoxification kits. And I started marketing those on Google AdWords, and our ad budget grew to almost $1 million a year. And I built and managed our e-commerce business for around 10 years. After we sold that company, I started investing into e-commerce technology, and that eventually became what today is Outsmartly.
So it's probably like one of these, like you felt the pain. So, but pain is always the impetus for actually solving the problem. I mean, and can you kind of give us like a high level overview about what Outsmartly is and like how does it work? What does it do for customers?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we started Outsmartly after seeing customer after customer struggle with implementing high performance, automated, and intelligent shopping experiences. And specifically, time and again, we saw the difficulty that customers faced when attempting to deploy legacy A/B testing tools like Optimizely. And they're hard to configure, hard to manage. They can have a huge negative performance impact. And so we started Outsmartly to give them an easy platform that allows customers to keep their existing backend systems like Shopify, but move the front end to a modern high-performance platform that includes intelligent and automated A/B testing and auto merchandising and whatnot.
That makes total sense. So when you say moving to like a high-performance platform, are you talking about like literally kind of separating it and like moving to like a headless style e-commerce?
Yeah, absolutely. The big difference here of what Outsmartly has been able to achieve is that businesses don't need to worry about sort of going headless, and it's just part of the underlying technology that we're able to leverage on behalf of our customers.
Nice. Yeah, and then so I'm a performance engineer. Like I am a speed junkie. Like there is no, like, it doesn't matter how fast the site is. Like to me, it can always go faster. Like I'm the Charlie Sheen of like web performance. No amount of web performance is enough for me. Absolutely. Which is why I like A/B testing, right? I understand the value of A/B testing, but as a performance engineer, and as a performance engineer and a mathematician, like A/B tests are just so insane to me because you're doing all of this optimization on the client side. So it's like, we're going to test whether these things are better or higher converting, but the act of implementing that test is introducing load that is essentially dropping the conversion rate, right? Because like just the physics of e-commerce are slow sites convert worse. Like, just like gravity and the sun shining and like that is true. So, when you're talking about high performance and also on the A/B side, like how does Outsmartly kind of differ from something like an Optimizely, where it's just like, here's this thing and you can add it to any site?
Yeah, sure. So there's actually like two components in that. I mean, the first component, right, as we know, like Optimizely is an A/B testing sort of tool like Google Optimize or Visual Website Optimizer and many others. I sort of put emphasis on the word tool because these tools by themselves, they don't do anything, but fundamentally they make more work for businesses without any guarantees of delivering value. And we're different in that our platform leverages tools like A/B testing without business owners having to do any of the heavy lifting. And then the second component is that we're able to take advantage of breakthroughs in edge compute and edge data, which sounds kind of super buzzy, but it allows us to deliver extremely high performant dynamic content, whether that's A/B testing or auto merchandising or these types of things that businesses need. And the great thing is that it's just natively integrated in our platform so that businesses don't have to do, all of that work that's associated with a traditional tool.
So, we've talked about the auto merchandising thing, and that's kind of like the moment where I was like, okay, now like I'm actually listening. Because and we've kind of discussed this ourselves, but delivering software is about delivering value, right? It's not about delivering another tool to show you the problem in a different way. Like that doesn't help anybody. And obviously, from our side of the house, it's like we could never understand why all these performance monitoring systems just monitored performance. And it'd be like, the customer problem is like, hey, my website's slow. And it's like, do I have the solution for you? Let me show you 15 different ways that your site is slow. And it's like, yeah, thank you. I know the site is slow. What will make the site faster? And so this idea of saying, hey, we're not just going to deliver performance monitoring, we're actually going to use that monitoring data to go make automated optimizations. And I think that's kind of the point for me with Outsmartly is you're taking a concept like A/B testing, right? Which is one thing that we need to do. You're keeping it high performance, but you're kind of moving A/B testing to, again, that auto merchandising thing, right? And keeping all the performance because you're not putting all the lift on the client side. Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Yeah, absolutely, right? And if I just sort of expand on what you were saying there, right, unpack that a little bit more. What I hear a lot when people talk about A/B testing, sort of the most famous example is the blue button versus the red button, right? But that's probably not going to make any difference for most sites. And this kind of thinking really just ends up requiring a ton of manual work to get anywhere. And most of the stuff doesn't make a difference. And where we find a lot of value locked away is in the content businesses already have. And this is really what makes it more of a merchandising problem. It's not so much about creating new stuff. It's figuring out how to organize the products, the reviews, the blog posts, and the other content in a way that maximizes conversions. One of our customers sells t-shirts, and we find there's a lot of variance, in terms of what people are purchasing, depending on geographic region of the actual visitor, right? And once we frame the problem in this way, we can build and deliver automated solutions that just keep getting better and better as they learn more about the site and its visitors. And shop owners, they can just, throw stuff into the system, and the system's going to figure out what it is that converts the best without the shop owners being like, oh, hey, I should A/B test. Like, let's try a blue button versus a green button, right? They already got so much stuff that is just not organized in an optimum way on their site. That's where auto merchandising can really make a huge impact without the business owner having to, invest in a whole new set of skills or hiring people to do that.
Man, I 1,000% agree with this, right? And I think that I think in a lot of ways, this is kind of what the next generation of SaaS is really trying to do, right? It's this idea, I hate using AI and I hate using machine learning and all of these things because they are very buzzwordy and honestly, most of the time they don't really do anything. But what you're talking about here, and also kind of conversely, what we're doing at Edgemesh is saying, hey, this is the actual problem, right? This is the problem that we want to solve. How much of this are we ready to solve automatically, right? And then can we just solve that for the customer? Like a machine going in and auto merchandising and changing the layout of products based on what is most likely to convert. That's something that you would do by hand every week, but a machine can do it every millisecond. And and then you're saying that you can actually have that content delivered, and you can have many of those tests running on geographic regions and things like that. And I mean, is that how you would categorize Outsmartly, as kind of what I like to call value as a service companies instead of software as a service companies?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that framing of sort of value as a service, right? And, I think we both sort of agree that there's this huge transition that's starting to happen for e-commerce stores. And like you, we constantly hear from stores that they don't want to be forced to learn new software, nor have to hire more people to manage it. And we see a lot of business owners that have developed this huge body of expertise in a niche market. And what they really want is technology that leverage their existing skills and success, so they can just drive revenue to the next level without having to go figure out a whole bunch of new stuff. And I think that's where like a tool like auto merchandising can really come in and deliver a huge amount of value. Is that it's not saying like, hey, this is a black box that you know nothing about. It's saying like, hey, you know your market better than anyone. It's just that there's this next level that technology can get you to. And that's where, like, as you're saying, value as a service, rather than like, hey, here's this super complicated tool that if you figure out how to use it right, is probably going to deliver value for you, but good luck, right? And they already got 20,000 other things they need to do. Who can capture that value? Almost no one. And that's where Outsmartly and you all really come in to just like give them that leverage to immediately be able to reach out and capture that additional value.
Yeah, I mean, I have just such a deeply ingrained hatred of complexity, right? So every time, it's like I have a conversion rate problem, and I think it might be a function of how the site is laid out, or which products are being pitched, or which reviews are being brought out, whatever. It's a content layout problem. That's my problem. And the solution is, well, here's a tool that allow you to, so you can start thinking of 50 different ways to say that problem. Now you've got 50 problems. Like, should it be? And next thing you know, you're down to like red button, blue button, and all this, frankly, shit that doesn't really matter. And where I think, I mean, in this, obviously speaking for us personally, when we started, it was obvious to us that taking real user metrics data, bringing it into the system, having that capability to enhance the client-side browser and add the ability to do prefetching and stuff like that, we knew what the general outline would be because we had optimized so many websites over the years. And then kind of building the machine to manage the machine is always a little tricky. But after, and I would say really honestly took us probably about a year until we got that stuff dialed in. But once it's dialed in, the performance impacts, I mean, for us, the performance impacts, I remember so distinctly those first customers that were on kind of the full autopilot of the Edgemesh caching algorithm. And I remember just going in and just checking stats every night, just constantly. And, they kind of slowly improve. And just being like, shit, this, like, not that I didn't think it would work, but it was like, oh my God, like this actually works. And like I can go, essentially with a piece of software, I can go tune, I mean, we can tune infinite systems, right? Like we're only limited by the scalability of software, which is frankly super cheap to scale as compared to people, which is super expensive. But, something like this, where it's content layout, I mean, this is a complex problem. And I know you guys have been at it for, a little while, but even I would say, even at probably what is an earlier stage, I mean, what kind of impacts have you seen? Like, as exact a number as you're comfortable with, but like, what kind of real world impacts have you seen with existing stores, like real stores?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we have one customer, and they spend around $200,000 a month on Facebook ads. And when they came on to the Outsmartly platform, we were able to orchestrate for them, without them doing any lift, we were able to orchestrate this A/B test where we split traffic between the default Shopify rendered version and the Outsmartly sort of accelerated version. And we saw load times drop by more than 2/3, and they saw an immediate 28% increase in mobile conversions. What I think is also important there is that we were able to, like you were saying, sort of transparently orchestrate this very important A/B test to collect that data and be able to go back to the store owner and be like, hey, look, this is how big of an impact, this kind of performance was able to deliver for you all. And that's really important in, giving the business confidence to keep investing in a particular direction.
Yeah, I mean, just before this call, I had a customer call they've been a customer with us, I think a little bit less than a year. And, this is really like the kind of the first 2 quarters where they've, the business is scaled and their performance, I mean, literally their time to interactive a year ago was 4.9 seconds, and their time to interactive today is 1.5 seconds, and that's great. But now that we've got kind of all this data, right, and we're able to look at the impacts of all this, he was like, listen, we did our first $1 million month this month. Like, our organic search traffic has gone through the roof, and like, the content hasn't changed. That's just the performance side. And of course, their conversion rate, they had a sub 1% conversion rate when we all kind of started working together. And, now they're at mid single digit conversion rates fairly consistently. So, I mean, I think performance is a big part of it, but is just moving the platform over, kind of moving the front over to the Outsmartly platform, like, is headless all you really need to do to get that performance, or is is there more to it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's sort of a very nuanced question, right? And I think the answer is, well, one, like, absolutely not. Headless alone, I've seen plenty of slow sites that are running headless, and usually what we see happening there is that businesses have been sold that headless is going to solve all their performance problems, but it often doesn't end up being true. And the problem is that it's just too easy to slow a fast site back down, right? It only takes a single rogue app and the site becomes painfully slow again. And that's, one of the reasons why we love working with you guys, is because there's this ton of real world, performance data that needs to be collected and monitored and analyzed and reacted to on a continual basis to assure that a site stays fast. And obviously, we're both of the mind that, software needs to solve the problems automatically, not just, point them out and give them some tool to, like, here, go, good luck, go figure this out on your own, right? Businesses owners, they don't have time to deal with that. And they just want, a site that's fast, that stays fast and converts better because of it. And that's, exactly what we're able to provide together.
Yeah.
And I really like, how our two solutions work together, especially, around being able to gauge the impact of apps on both performance and conversions in a quantifiable way. And then to be able to just, give this data back to business owners so that they know what's working and what's not. And I think, we see that a lot where, business owners just like, 1 week they put this app in and they put this app out and they put this app in and they put this app right. And it just sort of like goes on and they never really know, like, did the app make a difference? No idea, like, how did it impact performance? How did it impact conversions? And it's really hard. It's hard to see that because usually you have a lot of fluctuation in your day-to-day sales and you put an app in and you don't know, like, was it because we just had this ad take off on Facebook, or was it because somebody mentioned us, some influencer, shared a post that our conversions went up, or was it the app, or the other way around because it went down? And that's something that, like, I think it's really exciting about our partnership, that we can go back to the business owners and be like, hey, here's this quantifiable data. We ran, like, all this heavy math statistics behind the scene. You don't have to worry about that, but we can come back and be like, hey, here's the actual data of what this specific app of all the apps, like whatever app you want to throw at it, this is what it actually does for your store. I think that's a great way to be able to, build conversions month after month.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we have all the performance data, but we really don't generally have visibility into the conversion rate data. Generally, that data sits with the customer at Google Analytics or at Shopify or Adobe Marketing or whatever it is that they're using for their conversion rate tracking. But the thing that I find super interesting, it's like one of the biggest things that makes a performance lift for Edgemesh is this concept of pre-caching. And it's the idea that based on what real users have really requested, we're going to give you the ability, we're going to make it so that each browser that hits your page will preemptively cache, pull into the browser that image or piece of JavaScript or whatever these performance sensitive things are. And if you think about it, the way you're kind of doing the auto merchandising is sort of the same thing. You're saying, hey, you know what we should show? We should show the products first that people are most likely to buy. And I'm like, right? You know what we should cache? We should cache first the images and JavaScript that people are most likely to click on. And so, to me, it's just, it's fascinating that we kind of have the same problem that we're trying to solve for a customer, which is increased conversion rates, which is just such a massive problem. And I'm always kind of like, listen, I can't make your product better. I can't make your marketing better. I can't make your content or your layout or like, I don't know anything about that, but I know everything about the performance side. So I'm going to make it as fast as possible. And then, then you guys are on the other side and it's like, listen, how this stuff lays out, how the content lays out, where the reviews lay out, which reviews lay out, that stuff matters. And we're coming at it from two completely different viewpoints. And yet we inevitably end up kind of converging on some of these same ideas. It's in a lot of ways, it's like search, right? There are kind of two, if you were to bifurcate kind of the way search is ranked, there are fundamentally kind of these two metric breakpoints. On the left-hand side, you've got performance. Performance is a major component of search because it doesn't matter how great the site or content is. If the user can't see it, it doesn't matter. And then the other side is the relevancy. And so it's kind of like, hey, Edgemesh is going to do everything it can do on the performance side. And it's always nice to have some cooperation from the server side, like put me on a platform that doesn't like have a cache miss and go for a walk every, few hours and give me a 30-second time to first byte. But we can handle the performance side, and you guys are handling, and I think in a lot of ways are handling the relevancy side, kind of taking what's there and making it more relevant by bringing the stuff that actually matters up into the front of the page. So, I mean, and I get this question a lot for Edgemesh customers, like, at what stage does a company need to be when they should start looking at something like Outsmartly? Where do they need to be as a store?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I want to sort of split that answer into a couple parts, right? And before we get sort of to Outsmartly and the Outsmartly value prop, just to look at what are some of the underlying technologies that Outsmartly is actually leveraging today. But if a store wanted to go out and just sort of figure out how are they going to build this, most modern tech stack that they can, what would that look like? And certainly headless is going to be a big part of that, and the modern JavaScript front end, and maybe edge deployment, and a lot of buzzwords that make your eyes water, right? But if a store were to go out and do that, they might be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not into millions, of a price tag to sort of get that. Plus, probably they need some in-house engineers, maybe they need a statistician, they need a whole bunch of stuff. Or if they go to an agency to build this new headless front end, it could be, like I said, easily hundreds of thousands of dollars. So for that kind of level, we see stores probably not till they get to almost $100 million revenue, where like it starts to make sense for them to be like, hey, we're going to go make this big investment in this without really knowing what it's going to do to us, but just hoping that it delivers, right? And then as we talked about, and as you were just talking about, that there's no guarantee that just because you built this like buzzwordy front end platform for your business, that it's actually going to be able to deliver, because there's still so much work that needs to be going on, right, around all this client-side performance optimization and monitoring that Edgemesh is working on, right, in order to keep that there. Plus, how do you integrate these tools like A/B testing and auto merchandising in a way that actually works with the stores, not in a way that gives them more work they have to do, but also not in a way that sort of takes away their ability to do what they need to do on their site, right? And I think that's another sort of balancing act on figuring out how do we provide, value as a service as opposed to software as a service, is that if you're going for the software, like you theoretically get full control, but that's where, most businesses don't want full control. They want the control they want control over, and then everything else they want to just be taken care of, right? And I think that's where we both walk that line of, being able to give businesses control of what they need, but also automating all the stuff that they shouldn't be worrying about and letting them leverage what they're really good at, understanding their market, understanding their niche, understanding sort of where they advertise, and then just amplifying that work into higher conversions, faster sites, and all of this. So when you look at the Outsmartly platform, we're leveraging, a huge amount of this modern day technology. And really for us, it's probably around $5 million that a business, like that we start to make sense for a business, where like you pick up a stack like this and it's a lot of revenue, like in total dollar value, that's locked away in a $5 million site. And the only way to get it out is really to be able to completely move to a modern stack. And what's really, let's say, I think innovative about Outsmartly is that business owners can effectively just flip the switch and Outsmartly delivers all that. And yes, it's headless, but headless is sort of an implementation detail of our platform. And it's not something that business owners now need to worry about, like, oh, I now need my own engineer to figure out how to update my site, or like, are my apps going to work? Yes, your apps are going to work. Like, we're going to figure all of that out. And, as we were just talking about earlier, together, we're going to make that even smarter, because we're going to be able to go back and say, like, Edgemesh is going to be able to say, hey, this app's performance is like terrible. Like, why are you investing in this modern site? Because this thing is just like killing you, right? Like, no, it's not a good app. Or, hey, this is a great app, right? And we see it increases your conversions. Or like, hey, chat on your site, it really makes a difference. But, at nighttime when the chat is off, like actually it lowers your conversions. Like we've seen that before for people, right? So maybe you want to take chat off at night, or actually staff it all the time, right? And this is where business owners need quantified data so they can make a decision, like to hire more staff to tend chat at night. Like, does it make a difference? Well, let's find that out in a quantifiable way.
Yeah, obviously we're brothers from another mother, but the idea that, so it's kind of a similar thing. It's like, when do you need to invest the time and money to build a web performance team? Honestly, you're probably right. You're probably dead right. Around $100 million. At about $100 million in ARR, it's now going to make sense to pick up that, $2 to $5 million a year recurring web performance team overhead. Because the engineering talent is rare and expensive. The tools are expensive. Capturing, managing, and querying the data is expensive. And inevitably that team's going to want to make infrastructure changes, which, it's very rare that changing infrastructure and picking up speed results in a reduction in cost. But if you can take something like, again, saying, hey, let's look at all of that and let's see if can we get 80% of the value automated. And for us, that's in client-side caching, right? Can we make the browser smarter and try to do a bunch of this left? Because, by the way, if we can get 80% of the value automated, all of a sudden we can bring this price point way down. And now all of a sudden it's like, listen, like, and this almost the exact same price point. It's like, at what point should I really start looking at Edgemesh? And, I'm like, listen, Edgemesh is going to cost somewhere between $500 and $5,000 a month, depending on how much traffic you have. And, even on the low end, you're talking about a business, that's probably doing $100,000 to $200,000 a month in advertising costs or infrastructure costs. So you're talking about a business about $5 million. So if you're doing about $5 million, you are a real business that moving real revenue and actually moving these conversion rates is really genuinely going to impact your business. And by the way, if you're less than that, doesn't mean you shouldn't make your site fast. By all means, like try to make Edgemesh. But those first few dollars are still probably better capturing users rather than optimizing the users that you capture. Like you still need to dial in, your marketing and your messaging and your product and kind of things like that. But once you kind of get that stuff on plane, the free 20 to 40% lift in conversion rate that you get with performance, like that goes straight to the bottom line. And then now that's a meaningful number. And so you're saying, hey, all these other things like the A/B testing, the going headless, moving the infrastructure stack, blah 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 blah. You don't need to wait until you're at $100 million to take on that cost, because by the way, that cost isn't there anymore. We've automated. Yeah, I don't know how much of that is like if a customer comes tomorrow and they're like, I'm ready, let's do it. Like I'm ready to get smarter. How do I move to Outsmartly? How much of that is there still like a lift for the customer? Like, are they still going to need an engineer or?
No. We have wrapped all of that into the Outsmartly service. So we're doing all of that lift on our side. Essentially, they're just coming to us and being like, hey, yeah, we want it. And, we're actually able to deliver that a lot of times in a proof of value period where, we are able to prove to them and quantify the conversion impact of being on Outsmartly versus not before they even have to pay us a dime, right? Which is pretty much unheard of in the world today, right? Where what we have seen, right? We can come in and given the characteristics of most of these sites, we know what a big difference there is between like where they're at and what's possible. So it's that's why our VCs give us money to essentially go out and do this for businesses, because we know that on the other side, there's so much ROI to be generated from it that the numbers just work. They work for everyone, right?
Right. And then because you've, again, built the machine to run the machine, right? So you've built the machine to automate the movement from a, kind of a traditional, say, Shopify or Magento storefront to the headless version of that, rather than, somebody cracking their knuckles and figuring it out. So you're dramatically cutting that time and cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really important in these like, let's say 5 to 15, $20 million businesses is that they don't want the complexity of being headless on their side, right? And that's why I sort of said earlier when we started talking that headless is really just an implementation detail of Outsmartly. It's like, yes, we leverage the APIs of Shopify and we integrate in that way, but the business owner doesn't ever even need to know what headless means, right? It's just that, we were able to orchestrate this incredibly performant, high converting, auto merchandised front end and show it to them, prove the value of it, and then like they can start paying us for that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I had a mentor who once told me that you your software is done and you've delivered the best version of your software that you can. When a customer uses it and then somebody asks, hey, how does that software work? And their answer is, I don't know and I don't care.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that makes total sense. Well, listen, man, I appreciate all your time. I know I took a lot of your time today, but this was
I know, it was great.
All right, cool, man. Well, we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Sounds great. Great hanging out and chatting with you as always.